This is TWiT.
I'm a little mad at Mark, and I don't know. Maybe it's not reasonable to be mad at Mark for this. It's just something leaves a bad taste in my mouth. A teenager and her mom in Nebraska, 17-year-old girl, and her mom were chatting on Facebook Messenger. They thought privately about her medicine-induced abortion. The abortion was at 28 weeks, which is illegal in Nebraska. Nebraska somehow must have found out about it. The police sent a subpoena, a warrant to, I don't know what the difference is, one of those, to, I think, a warrant to Facebook, and they provided the not-so-private chats, which were then used to gather more evidence and arrest the 17-year-old who's being tried as an adult. Her mother is also being tried, as is a man who was charged with attempting to conceal the death of another person, the fetus. This to me is exactly, in a nutshell, why privacy is so important. You can't, Denise, can you fault Facebook? Don't they have to give the police that information, given a valid warrant?
They do. Here's what they don't have to do. They don't have to have the data. They could delete it. They don't have to keep chat logs.
Good point.
Yeah. So if you want to get mad at Mark for something, get mad about him for that, because they have to respond to search warrants with information they actually have.
Yeah.
If they don't have it, they don't have anything to give over.
This is why encryption, end-to-end encryption is so important, because then the company can't hand it over. And in fact, weirdly, right about the same time, Meta expanded Messenger's end-to-end encryption. They say it is unrelated to the Nebraska abortion case. You can have end-to-end encrypted conversations, as I remember, on Messenger, but you have to turn it on. So, and you remember that famous post from Mark Zuckerberg 3 years ago saying, everything's going to be end-to-end encrypted eventually. They have faced, according to Wired, technical and political challenges that have delayed that. But they're driving, according to Wired again, they're driving toward, quote, a global rollout of default end-to-end encryption for personal messages and calls next year. Government doesn't like this. Government calls it going dark. They think the bad guys are going to use this.
Government likes search warrants.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, we know that. So, this is painful on a number of levels. I feel for the 17-year-old who didn't want to have a baby. She and her mom had conversations she thought was private. Mark thought otherwise. But in every step of the way, this is all legal.
Yeah, for sure. And a good cautionary tale in the wake of recent Supreme Court developments to know that this is how things are going to go. This case would have been prosecuted before Dobbs because
it was late.
She was
late term
abortion.
It
was late.
Yeah.
But this is how this is going to go. People are going to be asked for search histories. People are going to be asked for communications.
And we know that the data smog that you leave behind you can be used in all sorts of ways. I remember a story from years ago. Was it Target? Some store knew that a shopper was pregnant before her family did, based on her purchases at the store. So they started sending her solicitations for, diapers and things. And she was like upset because she hadn't told anybody she was pregnant. And this is the case. Your data can say things. And if suddenly you're not pregnant after being pregnant, this data can get you in a lot of trouble in about 23 states in the United States. Yeah. So what should we do? I mean, we talked about period tracking apps. Turn those off, yes. But
definitely. And, I think it's just a good idea. I know it's a lot to think about people using Signal in their daily lives, but,
that's a shame.
If you're...
Because then you're acting as if, I'm a secret agent and I have to do everything encrypted. Plus, you have to get everybody to do it. And I even think that could be a red flag for law enforcement Well, that's interesting. Leo seems to be using encrypted messaging exclusively. I wonder what he's up to.
Yeah, but you use HTTPS too in your browsers, I mean,
that's why Facebook and everybody else should just turn it on. Then
Yeah.
nobody looks guilty because they're using it. It's just the default. Everybody's using it. You don't have to choose
Right.
Signal.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let's hope they move along.
The other reason that they want to do that is because exactly what we're talking about. Then the next time something like this happens, they're kind of off the hook because there's nothing they can do. The problem would be, right, to play devil's advocate, is the next time there's a terrorist attack or something that everyone can see was planned on Telegram or something like that, and there's no way to track people down, then the government gets even more mad and wants to.
The only thing
off.
I would say to that is there have always been and probably always will be a way for people to communicate privately, even if it involves going out in a field and whispering in each other's ear. People are going to be able to communicate privately. You cannot eliminate all means of communicating privately. And the law protects to some degree your privacy and things like, well, is there any, actually it's a good one for our attorney. Is there any, I mean, you can get law can always get a wiretap, right? Is there, they can open mail, right? There are laws against opening mail, but if they have a warrant, they can open mail.
Particularly under the Patriot Act and all the legislation that came out after 9/11. Yeah, you can, if there is probable cause for a crime that's being investigated and they think that data may exist in a place, they can compel it to be turned over under a court order. So we get back to, do you have the data?
Right. I'll make the argument that Phil Zimmerman made when I interviewed him. He was the creator of PGP. And he said law enforcement is not going dark. Law enforcement has unprecedented access to data, more than they've ever had before. People are using digital devices to communicate, and law enforcement can see into most of those. So it isn't the fact that, oh my God, we can't do our job anymore. It's he said, and I think he's accurate, it's more of a case they've got a amazing view into everything that's going on, and there are a few little spots where they can't see, and that bugs them that there's some dead pixels. They're not going dark. They have more than they've ever had before. Does that seem accurate, Doc Rock?
100%.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I think, that it is the full, they want full control, and they also want full autonomy. And it's funny how it works until it gets flipped back on them because of something that they did wrong.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Then it's like, oh, the camera was off. Or this is secret, and if we tell you how we did it, then, so that's the catch-22. And you're right. They definitely have more access. They have the best tools in the world now. If you look on LinkedIn and you are a forensic data specialist, you will find jobs in law enforcement agencies all around the country looking to hire people that are even better at it. So yeah, they're kind of full of it. They want the best of both worlds. They also, just like in an interrogation, they know all they need to know, but they want you to tell them, because then that ironclads the case, which is the reason why they end up screwing it up, because they keep pushing for a confession and then they do something dumb and get the person off, because they just want to get their work done for them.
This is a little off topic. And by the way, we have a lot of law enforcement people listen to our shows. I've met them, I've talked to them, and I have a huge respect for them. I know
my brother-in-law is a cop, so yeah. I mean, it's definitely not an anti-law enforcement thing. I think it's more of, like you said, if I can get everybody to do all of the work for me, that just makes my job easier. I don't blame anybody for wanting that, but you just got to understand what you're asking for.
Yeah, and look, the Constitution has 2 amendments, the 4th and the 5th, designed really to protect our privacy, to protect us against unlawful search and seizure and overreaching law enforcement. So this is something that's been recognized for 200 plus years in this country, and we are in theory protected. I don't want to go down this. There's a wonderful book Jeff Jarvis recommended. Elie Mystal, who is a commentator on MSNBC, he's a Harvard law graduate, a brilliant guy, wrote a book, Allow Me to Retort, The Black Man's Guide to the Constitution. And in it, he makes, I think, a strong case that, look, we got the Fifth Amendment. You're right to, not incriminate yourself. people plead the fifth. And yet we allow, coerced confessions all the time. And really, he says you should not allow confessions in the trial. That just shouldn't be allowed. The fifth specifically says you have a right not to incriminate yourself. And I mean, that's a longer conversation, and I'm sure, Denise, you've probably thought about this a little bit. I think Ellie makes a very good case for it. He's against confessions. He says, forget the, Miranda rights. Police should not be allowed to ask for confessions. You shouldn't.
I don't know. I mean, if you're sitting there being interviewed and your lawyer's there and you have a good lawyer and you decide to confess, I'm okay with that confession being used.
It's just is so often misused.
Yeah.
You're right. Under perfect circumstances, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
You should be allowed to plead guilty, right? I did it. Your Honor, I did it. Anything more than that, though, gets you in a lot of trouble because there's a lot of coerced confessions going on.
Yeah.
They lie to you. They'll, there's all sorts of things. So as any lawyer and any police officer will tell you, don't talk to the police ever. Just don't talk. It's not in your interest. They're not looking to help you. They're looking to convict you.